Hello, and welcome to My Living Room. I'm Kathleen Hershner. Today, the subject is spirits. And I don't mean phantasmas, ghosts, or spirits, as we call them in English. I mean spirits in the alcoholic sense. In English, we use the word spirits to talk about alcohol like vodka, whiskey, scotch, tequila, even sherry and brandy are considered spirits. Wine seems to have a different category. We don't really think of wine as being a spirit, at least not in English. But I think spirits really includes all of the drinks that have alcohol in them. And the reason I'm thinking about spirits is not because I want to have one right now or because I'm an expert in them, but because I've always been interested in drinking wine. I appreciate wine. I'm not a wine connoisseur. I don't know that much about wine, but I did live in one of the most prominent wine producing areas of the United States. In the San Francisco Bay Area, we don't have vineyards, but we do to the north in Napa County and Sonoma County, which are only about a 50-minute drive from San Francisco. And these are two regions that really put California on the map in terms of wine production. The Napa Valley came first and then Sonoma a little later. There are other regions in California that are gaining a very good reputation in terms of the wines that they produce. One of these regions was highlighted in the movie Entre Copas, which in English is called Sideways. And it's the story of two guys who go on sort of a road trip to have a little fun before one of them gets married. Most of you have probably seen this movie. It was very successful in Spain. And the movie was filmed in sort of the Santa Barbara area, San Luis Obispo region, down south in the south central part of California. And this region is much younger in terms of its wine production than Napa or Sonoma, but its vines have now been around for 30 or 40 years, and they're starting to produce some really great wines. So, when I lived in San Francisco, I enjoyed very much going to the wine country, learning more about wine, really enjoying wine, not drinking wine to get drunk, but drinking wine because I enjoyed the taste, I like the way it makes me feel, and it also pairs so nicely with food. Of course, Spaniards know this. You've known this for hundreds, if not thousands of years. But people in the United States started to become interested in wine about 40 or 50 years ago. Most people in the United States thought that good wines came from France. Well, we all know that's not true. There are some good wines in France, but there are also good wines from Chile, South America, other countries in Europe, of course, Spain, Italy. So, anyway, to make a long story short, I went to a spirit talk, not a seance, but a talk where a viniculturalist was going to talk about spirits. And he was giving a talk in a little gourmet shop that's close to where I live. And my friend who owns the gourmet shop, who you'll probably meet very soon on this program, invited me to come and listen to Javier Monclus talk about spirits. The spirit that he was highlighting the night that I was there was whiskey. And I don't really like whiskey very much. It's a little too strong for me. I really only drink wine. In the summertime, I might have a beer, and I like things like vermouth, but I don't really like spirits that are high in alcohol. And whiskey's one of them. But I thought, well, this will be kind of fun. I can go and listen to a talk in Spanish, try to improve my Spanish comprehension, and learn a little bit about whiskey as well. And so I went to the talk, and Chavi was making martinis with whiskey. He was making all kinds of cocktails using whiskey instead of the traditional alcohols or spirits that you usually make these drinks with. Whiskey martini, whiskey margarita. He had all kinds of strange whiskey drinks, but they were really pretty good. And I was happy because Chavi spoke English, and he knew that I was the only English-speaking person in the group. So every once in a while, he would say something in English and then look at me, and I felt a certain connection with him. And it really helped me, too. It helped me with my comprehension overall of his talk. So today we're going to have him on in the second half of the hour, and he's going to talk about some of the spirits that he represents for other companies, and maybe he'll even bring a sample or two in. I don't know. I don't know what to expect. I hope he does, though. But it did make me think about my experience drinking wine, because I've lived in 3 different wine-producing regions in the world. I first experienced winemaking and wineries when I lived in the Finger Lakes area of New York. A little bit to the north and west of Ithaca, New York, is what we call the Finger Lakes region. And this is a wine-producing region. They produce pretty good white wines. They're not nationally renowned. Their wines are not fantastic, but they're pretty good, and they have won some awards in the past few decades. The Finger Lakes is a really interesting part of New York. It's not upstate New York. It's actually central New York State, and it's about 4 or 5 hours from New York City, so it's nothing like New York City. It's like countryside, and it's very rural with an agriculturally based community. But the reason they call it the Finger Lakes is because there are 5 lakes. They're glacial lakes formed by glaciers hundreds of thousands of years ago, and they kind of look like this. They look like your fingers, and hence the name Finger Lakes. And I think there are 5. There's a little one over here. But they are very long, thin lakes that are very close to each other. The lakes have very high, very steep slopes, and on these slopes, the conditions are very good for growing certain types of grapes. And so anyway, when I lived there, we used to enjoy many outings to the winemaking regions in the Finger Lakes area of New York. And I learned a little bit about what goes into the winemaking process. I tasted some delicious wines. They're known for producing an ice wine, which is a grape that is harvested in the winter when the grapes are a little bit frozen. And when the grapes freeze, that concentrates the flavor of the grape. Now, I'll have to ask Javier about this later because I'm not an expert on it. But I do know that it's a wine where the grapes are picked in the wintertime after the first frost. Something about freezing the juice inside the grape concentrates the flavor, and it makes a delicious after-dinner drink, after-dinner wine. It's a little bit sweet, but not too sweet. It's not as sweet as a Riesling or some of the other sweet German wines, and it's delicious, especially in the summertime after dinner. So that was my first experience enjoying wine. And then we moved to the San Francisco Bay Area, where I used to go for the weekend, or even during the week sometime, to the Napa and Sonoma County winemaking regions. And back then, this was about 15 or 16 years ago, you could go to the Napa and Sonoma counties and drink wines, sample wines, for free. They didn't charge you to go into a winery, and it was very casual. You didn't need appointments like you often do here in Spain. You just went in, and there would always be somebody there if it was during opening hours, and they would serve you 6, 7, 8 samples of wine. You'd get about an ounce per glass. One of the problems that happened, as you can imagine, after a few years of this, is that as the wine regions became more popular and more tourists came up to visit these counties, they started having more and more problems with people driving while intoxicated, and they were issued pretty serious tickets, and many times had to lose licenses and go to court. We call these things DUIs, driving under the influence in the United States. And if you get a DUI, you can pretty much assume that you're going to lose your driver's license for a little while. So the wineries got together and decided that they needed to put limitations on how much wine they were willing to allow people who came in the door to drink, because you couldn't send people on their way drunk. If they got in an accident, sometimes the wineries would be liable, and this is, of course, a big problem. So they decided to start charging people a small fee, $5 or $10, in order to have a tasting. And at first people didn't like it. People that lived in San Francisco thought, well, we didn't have to pay for it before. Why do we have to pay for it now? But the benefit was that it did limit the amount of alcohol that people were drinking on the weekends when they were going up for wine tastings. And I think it was probably good for the wineries too, because people were buying more wine. I don't know this for a fact, but I remember reading articles to this effect. So that was one of the experiences that I had with wine. Another one was I had a friend who owned a very exclusive wine store. He called it the Wine Library. And he only sold wines to either companies or other distributors, or to people who were wine connoisseurs who could afford to buy the kinds of wines that he was selling, which were very, very expensive. And so I had an opportunity to sample some really fine French wines, old French wines, wines that would cost $300, $400, $500 a bottle. And to be honest with you, my palate is not an educated one. I can't taste a $300 bottle of Burgundy from France and really enjoy it the same way that a wine connoisseur might, the same way that a person might who had taught themselves how to taste the wine properly. You might remember a scene in Entre Copas where one of the guys was telling his friend how you're supposed to taste wine, and you're supposed to stick your whole nose in the glass and take a big sniff, and you're supposed to put the wine on the back of your tongue before you swallow it, all of these things. But really, this is unnecessary. Wine, it has become a little bit fetishized in the United States. It's very, very expensive. It's much more expensive to buy a good bottle of wine in the US than it is in Spain. And I think because of that, people tend to treat it with a little too much respect. After all, it's wine. It should be enjoyed. And I noticed that when I was living in San Francisco that people seemed to fetishize it. See, people would go to these wine tastings and have all of these flowery adjectives to describe the taste of the wine. Oh, I think I taste a hint of blackberry and a little watermelon aftertaste. I mean, this is unnecessary. I like the way Spanish people treat wine. You don't fetishize it, you enjoy it, you drink it while you're eating. And I haven't seen many of my Spanish friends drink wine with the purpose or the intent of getting drunk. And this is not always the case in the United States. But anyway, getting back to my stories about wine, I've always enjoyed having a good glass of wine, and I enjoy champagne as well. There was a movement, or a marketing movement, I would say, about 10 years ago, to try to encourage people to drink more California sparkling wine. Now, California sparkling wine is made in the méthode champenoise. It's made with the same technique as you make champagne. But up until a few years ago, they couldn't call it champagne, of course, because it wasn't from the Champagne region of France. I think there has been legislation that has relaxed that ruling and has allowed some of the producers of California sparkling wine to indeed call it champagne. I think they call it California champagne. But it's very, very good. I don't know if it compares to a Dom Perignon or some of the other fine French champagnes, but I've tasted some very, very good California sparkling wines. So there was this movement to get people to consider champagne as more of an everyday drink, but it failed. People still think of champagne as a special occasion drink. They don't think of it in terms of something you drink every day, like a wine. Maybe it's because of the carbonation. Maybe it's because when you drink a glass of champagne, the carbonation gives you that feeling of being a little bit lightheaded or a little tipsy more quickly than when you drink just a regular glass of wine. I don't know. I enjoy champagne. I'd like to drink it more, but I'm not in the habit of going to the store and buying champagne unless it's for a special occasion. So there's one other place that I lived in the world where wine was very, very popular, and they were very famous for their winemaking, and this was in Chile. I worked as a teacher for about 8 months in Santiago de Chile, and I had a really great time in Chile. It's a beautiful, beautiful country. If you've never been there, try to go at least once or maybe twice in your lifetime. It's fantastic. And the people are very, very nice, and they have sort of the same attitude about drinking wine that you here in Spain have. They don't fetishize it. They don't make a big deal out of it. They make very nice wines, and they enjoy drinking wine at lunchtime and with dinner. One day, I took a little day trip with my teacher friends to the Toro winery, which is very close to Santiago. I think it's called the Maipo Valley. Maipo. I think that's the name of this wine region. Very, very close to Santiago, which is more or less in the center of Chile, which is, of course, a very long country. And so we had this wonderful experience going to Toro winery outside of Santiago and learned a little bit about Chilean wines and some of the different grapes that they use in Chile, which are different than the grapes that we use in California. The main grapes in California winemaking are Cabernet Sauvignon, Pinot Noir, Chardonnay. Chardonnay is very, very popular in California. But in Chile, they have different grapes. I'm not sure if they use Tempranillo grapes or not, but Chilean wines definitely have a distinct taste. In fact, I think that if I had a blind tasting, if somebody covered my eyes with a handkerchief and I had wines on the table that I could taste, I'm not sure, but I think I would be able to know which wines are from Chile because they have a very, very distinct taste. One that I had to get used to at first. I didn't like it in the beginning, but the more I tasted it and the more I paired it with different types of food, especially seafoods, the more I began to appreciate this wine. You can find Chilean wines in some Spanish stores. Toro is one of the main producers. Also, Miguel Torres has a winery or two or three in Chile. So you can buy wines under the Miguel Torres line as well. One of the fun things we did with wine, as opposed to just drink it when I lived in Chile, was we had a contest. I was living with 4 other American teachers, and we were amazed at how inexpensive wine was to buy, good wine in Chile. And so we decided to have this little contest. We called our contest, How Low Can You Go? And the idea of this was that we were going to start with a bottle of wine that was the equivalent of $3 or $4 US. Now, the exchange rate between the Chilean peso and the dollar was very much in favor of the dollar. So our dollar bought a lot. You could buy a very, very good wine in Chile for $3 or $4 US. That same wine would cost you $10 or $12 in the United States because, of course, the distributors have to pay import tax and all kinds of other taxes associated with importation. So we started this contest. We started at about $4 and then we went down. And every week one of us would go to the grocery store and select a wine that was a little bit less expensive than the wine we had the night before or the week before. Finally, we were getting down to wines that were the equivalent of 80 cents. Now, there was one I remember, I can't remember the name of it, but there was one, Estrella something or other, and it was pretty good. For 80 cents in US dollars, it was what we call drinkable. You could drink it and not go, ugh, you could handle it. But when we went below 80 cents and we got down to like the 70 cent, the 60 cent, the 50 cent, we could see that we were getting into an area that was pretty dangerous. The wines were really pretty bad. And so we thought that the threshold was about 80 cents. You had to spend at least 80 US cents in order to get a drinkable wine. But it was a fun game, and we didn't really drink that much wine when we lived there. We were too busy teaching and working too hard. At the end of the night, it was all you could do just to get home, have dinner, have a quick glass of wine, and go to bed. We also lived on the 25th floor of a high-rise. And one of the weird things about this apartment was that it had a little balcony, but the balcony did not have a railing around the perimeter. So when you walked out the kitchen door, there was this balcony, and if you looked over the edge, we were 25 stories or plantas above the ground. And I thought this was very strange. I thought to myself, surely they would have some sort of building regulation or building code or some kind of safety code in place that would require by law to have railings around the perimeter of these balconies. My roommates were young people. I was the oldest person in the house. I was at least 15 years older than the person who was closest to me in age. And so I used to call myself Grandma to all of them because they were such little kids to me. And I used to worry about them. In Chile, you don't start going out at night until midnight, until medianoche. Most of the time, people would come to our house at about midnight. They would have drinks or spirits in the house, and then they would go out to the bars and drink for the rest of the evening. Now, I used to worry about them because I always went to bed early. I was in bed by 1 o'clock in the morning most of the time. But I would hear them come in the morning at about 4 or 5. And I knew that they were still drinking, and I used to worry about them going out onto the balcony. This was where my nickname of Grandma was born, because they started calling me Grandma because I was nervous. But you'd be nervous too if you knew that if somebody got a little bit tipsy, a little bit drunk, went out to the balcony to smoke a cigarette, and it had too much Chilean wine or Chilean spirits, they could lean over, lose their balance, and of course fall to their death. So this was one of the things that made me respect or shall we say, limit my own intake of alcohol, because I realized that I was in a country where alcohol was cheap, people were drinking a lot, and there weren't a lot of safety measures in place to protect people from themselves. So after I left Chile, I went back to Hawaii and moved back to Honolulu and was teaching there when I decided to take a trip to one of the islands in the Hawaiian chain called Maui. Now, Maui is a wonderful island. It's one of the most exciting islands to visit in the state of Hawaii because there are so many things to do. They have a lot of nightlife, fabulous hotels. They also have a lot of countryside, and yes, they have a wonderful winery there. Now, the winery isn't very well known, and the wines that this winery produces are mainly sold in the state of Hawaii. There isn't a big demand for wineries from this winery, and I can't remember the name of it, but it's the only one in Hawaii. So if you look on the internet, you can find it. And it's in a beautiful section of the island. It's in a section that's very country-like. It's like being out in the country and you don't even know you're on a tropical island. And here's this beautiful little winery. I think the building was built in the 1800s. It's like a little farmhouse. And they make a pretty good white wine, and they make a fairly good red wine. The white wine is better. The red wine needs a few more years. I think red grapes need longer to mature and to become complex in flavor than white grapes. I'm not sure about that either. I'll have to ask Chavi when he arrives. But I went to this winery and sampled the wines, and I thought, well, this is great. I mean, who would have thought that there would be a winery on Maui? But wines can grow in many different regions, and many different types of grapes can survive in different climates. And so there you go. There are wineries in Hawaii. There are wineries in upstate New York, or in the Finger Lakes region of New York. There are wineries in almost every state in the United States, including the state where I'm from, Kansas. It's true. The climate is not ideal for growing grapes in Kansas. In fact, I don't know why investors would put money into the winemaking business in Kansas. Maybe it's the idea that it's kind of a novel thing. It's a novelty. It's unusual. It's not normal. People don't think of Kansas and winemaking. But there is this winery in Kansas. Kansas is a state that's very, very hot in the summertime, and it's very, very cold in the winter. In the spring and fall, the temperatures are somewhat mild, but these are not ideal growing conditions for grapes. So I've tasted these wines. I don't think that much of them, but I do think it's interesting that people want to grow grapes wherever they can. When my brother, who was in the military, was in one of the wars in Iraq, we sent him some what he would call potato wine, or he had a different name for it, I can't remember, but it's wine that they were making by distilling potatoes, which is of course illegal to do when you're in the military, but they were producing this this spirit distilled from potatoes. And maybe I'll ask Xavi about this when he arrives, because I don't know how you could make anything drinkable out of fermenting potatoes. But my brother swears they did it, and we'll talk more about that when my friend Xavi Monclus arrives for the second half of the hour. Stay tuned for more talk on spirits in my living room. We'll be right back. And welcome back to the second half of our show today. As promised, my friend Xavier, Xavi Monclus, has joined us. He is a enologist consultant with Louis Vuitton Moet Hennessy.
That's it. You say it very well.
I have a good memory.
Yeah,
so,
good.
Xavi, without wasting too much time, we only have 25 minutes, and as you can see, there are many things that have appeared on our table.
Yes.
But as I said before, I met Xavi when he was giving a talk on spirits, on whiskey, I believe, at a gourmet shop in my neighborhood. And so I was so impressed with his presentation skills and, of course, the subject matter that I invited him to the show today. And he's going to make some cocktails for us today.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
A bit unique. So, Xavi, first of all, why don't you tell the viewers very quickly a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Yeah, what I do mostly is to give some advice on wines, mostly on champagnes and some whiskeys, etc. But what I prefer, what I really like to do is to give what we call wine education, to tell people how to drink, what to drink, and what to expect from a drink, which is very, very important, to have a certain criteria about our products.
Well, that's one of the things that I remember from the talk that you gave a couple of months ago, was that you were explaining to people actually how to smell the different ingredients in a drink and to appreciate what's in the drink, as opposed to just, knocking back a martini or something, because you use the spirits that Louis Vuitton Moet Hennessy represents in different ways. For instance, you have something called like a vodka-tini, and something called About My Name, Bob.
Are You Bobby Moore?
Are You Bobby Moore?
Yeah, that is a classic cocktail.
I've never heard of this cocktail, but I enjoyed tasting them because they were really different from what I expected. I think you made a margarita with whiskey?
Yeah, we can make a margarita with whiskey.
A whiskey Rita?
You can make a whiskey Rita. You can make a daisy with a champagne. You can do many things. You can just elevate classical cocktails using luxury ingredients. When we talk about luxury ingredients, we talk about very nice whiskeys, very nice vodkas, very nice champagnes, because people, sometimes they think that cocktails should be done with normal, medium quality spirits and drinks. But our philosophy is to drink less, but drink better. Well, which your body will appreciate it very much.
Isn't that the same philosophy that gourmet cooks and gourmet chefs utilize? I mean, it's all about the products that you use, all about the produce and the quality of the meat. And so I guess what you're doing is taking that philosophy and applying it to enjoying spirits or alcohol.
Exactly, that's exactly it. I mean, also, you cannot compare the taste, the flavor, the aromas of a cocktail made of poor ingredients. You cannot never compare it with a very, very good cocktail made with a very, very good drinks, good spirits, with a lot of complexity, with a lot of intensity. You can never compare both, because of course there's one is completely superior to the other.
Well, now your work as a consultant takes you all over Europe and even to England as well. And you give these wine education, which are not just about wine, but about spirits in general, these talks. And I was really interested in listening to you, first of all, because I understood your Spanish, but secondly, because you made me think about things that I don't think about when I'm drinking a cocktail.
That's what we're trying to do.
I don't drink cocktails that much. So before we spend too much more time talking, let's spend some time drinking.
Let's make a very simple one. Okay, that's good. Very, very good idea. Let's start for the very simple one. I would be the base of all cocktails. That would be a new version of the dry martini.
Okay.
The dry martini was initially made with gin and a nice white vermouth. That's why we're talking about good ingredients. I mean, that is the original vermouth that they used to prepare the first dry martini, which is one of the most popular cocktails of the world. And now what we're doing is to change, and instead using gin, we're going to use a wonderful vodka, which is considered one of the best vodkas of the world. Is Belvedere, is a Polish vodka, which is made of golden rye, Dankowski golden rye.
Rye is a grain.
Yeah, exactly. And that is only that is only born in Poland, this grain, so you cannot find it anywhere else in the world.
One of the things I've liked about Belvedere vodka is that what a great design they came up with for their bottle. I mean, it's fantastic. It's beautiful. Yeah. Well, let's get to it then.
Okay, let's get to it. It's very easy.
I love the way it looks here. We have
it's good.
This is one of the most popular shows we're going to have in my living room.
Okay. It's very, very, very tasting, and very tasting show. What we do is we're using what we call the Boston shaker. Okay. So we can usually what we would do is we will go like that.
Okay.
So we can also go like that with no problem. And what we're doing now is very, very simple. This is like a dry martini, I say. So what you do, this is a little bit.
You break up the ice.
Okay, when you can prepare the dry martini, which is now a vodka-tini, of course, because as I told you, we're substituting the gin for the vodka.
Okay.
Well, you can put a lot of vermouth, but the original one is only the perfume of the vermouth. So you pour the vermouth in there.
Vermouth is kind of sweet, isn't it?
No, this one is dry.
This one's dry?
Yeah,
okay.
This one would be dry, original dry.
Oh.
You see? Always dry.
Okay.
You can also have a sweet vermouth.
Yeah.
But we're doing, because this is a very straightforward cocktail, very, very pure, we're doing with the dry. So the only thing you do, in fact, is just to perfume the ice, just to give the aroma. I don't know if you see it right.
So the idea is to blend the ice with the vermouth to give it a little.
To give a little bit to perfume the ice. So you only put the martini like this.
So you're flavoring the ice right now.
Only flavoring it.
I love
exactly,
that.
flavoring with the vermouth because we're not going to use this vermouth for the cocktail. We're going to.
I'm going to use it later.
Exactly, you can use it later because it's nice and fresh. You can perfectly drink it, of course. But what we're going to do now is just to.
Okay, put your strainer on there.
We take it away. We take it, for instance, in a glass
in a waste,
like that.
Okay.
Yeah, for instance, like that. We take it away.
So now you're going to drain off the vermouth.
Yeah, we're taking out the vermouth.
You're left with flavored ice.
Exactly.
Or
now,
ice
what
what
you can feel now is the perfume of the vermouth in the ice. You see? You can see?
Nice. It doesn't smell like ice.
No, exactly. It smells like vermouth, and that's the only thing you're going to need. So now, what we're going to do is to put the vodka there.
Okay.
So as you can see, it is a quite alcoholic cocktail.
I can see that.
Very, very strong, very hot. And what we do now is just a little.
Why do they call that a Boston shaker?
Well, I think it was invented
in Boston?
Probably, yeah. Now, there's two things that we have to learn here now. Is that if we shake it, then we dilute the vodka, so we make a softer, more balanced cocktail.
And so we want to do that. We want
to do it now.
You shook it.
Okay. We want to, but it could be as perfect as this one in the same way.
Okay.
If we do it only, like what we call, if we only stir it. Stirring means that we could do exactly the same, but then only the vodka in the ice a little bit.
Okay.
So what we do like this is we cool down the cocktail, but we don't mixing so much with the water.
Okay.
So now it is diluted. What we do now is we put the olives, which is very important.
You can't have a martini without an olive,
exactly.
can you?
We're choosing the anchovies olive now
favorite.
because we feel like the salty character of the anchovy olives will go very well with this salty character of this beautiful vodka. Okay?
Now I noticed when you put that olive into the vodka, you didn't just throw it into the vodka.
No.
You sort of placed it in the vodka.
Exactly. It has to go down there. If you place it, it looks very bad.
So it's more a question of style.
Exactly.
If you're a bartender. Okay.
Another thing you would do now is with the lemon. As you see, we took a normal lemon. We took out the.
You peeled a lemon.
Zest.
Lemon zest, or this is the peel here, and the zest is what's under here.
Okay, perfect.
I think.
Perfect. Thank you for your information.
Well,
but what we do now is we flex the peel, and then here we're going to spell what we call the essential oils of the lemon. So we're going to perfume a little bit, only a little bit, the cocktail. Okay. That would be the final touch.
Okay, so you flex it or pinch it a little bit.
Flex it like this, if you feel it.
It's a good verb.
Can I have your hand?
Yes.
No problem. It's very nice, very healthy for you. Can you feel it?
Yes.
Something?
I felt a little
spraying.
A little spray.
Exactly.
And now
that is
a
the
little
essential
perfume.
oil. If you feel really very, very much like lemon.
It smells wonderful.
So that is, I'm going to change, of course, the area of flexivity. And then what we're going to do is just a little bit. Just
even that little motion.
Enough,
okay.
And you will feel it when you try it. You feel really this lemon aroma.
Oh, don't you wish you were here right now? I don't know if I'll be able to describe the flavor using
Sure.
words very well, but
It is very vodka, plenty
it's
of vodka.
very mild, though.
Yeah, it is.
It's not the kind of feeling that you get when you drink a strong drink.
Because we've been shaking it. If we only stir it like this, then it would be much stronger.
And I can taste just a hint of the lemon.
Exactly.
And I suppose as I get farther down, I'll taste some of the olive, too.
Exactly.
Very nice.
And the other thing you can do with this is to take, and if you take a little bit of this
little olive
kind of
juice.
brine,
Okay.
it's a brine. It's not
Yeah.
olive juice. It's a brine.
It's a brine,
It's kind of
salt,
brine, yeah.
a salt solution.
Yeah. Okay. If you put it here, what you're doing now is a dirty martini. It's called dirty martini.
A dirty martini.
Exactly. That's
Well, I'll be a dirty girl here. That's it. Has a different flavor.
Absolutely, completely different, huh?
It has sort of a tart flavor because of the brine from
Yeah,
the
exactly.
olive. Okay, that's for later.
That's for later. You keep it for later. Very good. Very
Next.
very intelligent. And now we're going to do a completely different cocktail with a little with increasing complexity.
Okay.
And what we're going to do is to use a very, very strong whiskey. This whiskey is considered, today we are very lucky because this whiskey is considered to be the number one in the world at the moment. It has been chosen recently by Jim Murray as the top number one whiskey in the world.
Ardbeg.
Ardbeg. It's an Islay.
Ardbeg is a single Islay malt Scotch whiskey.
Yeah, you would pronounce it Islay.
Islay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Islay with
Single Islay.
Islay mild. And single means that it's made only in one distillery.
Okay, so it's not a partnership with other.
Exactly.
Okay.
If you have
I'm gonna let you hold
pure,
it.
Yeah. If you have pure malt here,
Yeah.
pure malt means that it's made in Scotland
Yeah.
in the malt whiskey procedures,
Yeah.
but made in different distilleries, and then you blend it in.
Oh,
you
I
mix
see.
it. But this is coming from a single distillery.
Well, let me just ask you an indelicate question. How much does the world's best whiskey cost for a bottle?
Well, this is not very expensive at all.
No?
It can cost maybe $50.
Oh, I would have thought more.
About no, it is. It doesn't. That is another thing that we have to learn about whiskey. Is that not the most aged whiskey, which is the most expensive whiskey.
Yeah.
It is the best.
So not necessarily the oldest whiskey is
Exactly,
the best
not
whiskey.
necessarily now.
Yeah.
If you take the opinions of very good whiskey critics like Michael Jackson,
Okay.
for instance, they would tell you this.
Okay.
Let's try the next cocktail.
Okay.
For this cocktail, we're going to use white honey.
All right.
It has to be white. Why? Because when we make a cocktail, we work also with colors.
Okay.
So we want to be very nice in a very winey color, not
Okay.
in a very browny, cognac-y color.
So you don't add honey for sweetness. You add it more for the color.
I add it for the sweetness,
Oh.
but respecting the color. That's what I choose,
right.
the white honey, not a brown honey. Okay? So what we're going to do is to put 3 spoons of this honey,
Okay.
small spoons, as you can see.
I love honey.
Ah.
I never thought of having honey in one of my cocktails.
Yeah. The secret of the cocktails, most of the cocktails, they use what we call gomme. Gomme, it is a mixing of water and sugar that you do at your home. You can do it at your home. And then that is very important. It's key in cocktails because it gives you the balance between acidity and sweetness. The most important thing on cocktails is to keep the balance between acidity and sweetness.
Yeah.
So we're not using gum here because we're talking about luxury cocktails.
Yeah.
We're using honey. Okay.
Well, it's sort of like cocktail chemistry.
Exactly. That's it. That's it.
Hey, that would be a great name for a TV show.
Oh yeah. Very good. You should do it. Okay. Now we're going to pour a little bit of the whiskey.
Okay.
This Ardbeg.
We call this a jigger.
Can you smell it? You
in
can
the
see
United
the
States.
intensity of the peat.
Woo!
Very smoky, with a lot of petrol aroma.
It smells like a pasture.
Exactly. Very intense. Is the peatiest whiskey of the world.
It smells
is
delicious,
55
though.
Oh yeah, it is wonderful.
55% alcohol
50 parts per million of peat.
of peat,
The peat
as in
is
moss, peat moss.
It's exactly the peat moss. Exactly.
Ooh, it does. It smells really not pungent, but it smells very good. It doesn't have an unpleasant smell at all, but it is definitely.
But it's even a lot of
whiskey.
iodine, a lot of seaweed
Iodine?
aromas.
Yeah.
Iodine. Yeah.
Well, then maybe there's a health benefit if it has seaweed, if it has peat moss in it.
I can assure you that.
We're drinking for health here today.
Yeah. 1 part of Arabic, 1 part of this wonderful vodka.
So 1 part of the world's best whiskey, 1 part of the world's best vodka.
Exactly. Fortunate day.
Luxury cocktail.
Yeah. And we're going to have the whiskey and the vodka. We're going to blend it in with the honey until we dilute it completely.
And the honey's at the bottom, if you remember.
Exactly.
It's in the bottom of the Boston shaker. And that's, Xavi said, that creates the balance between the acidity and, well, balance in the cocktail.
Exactly.
Balancing the acidity and
the first
the
lesson when we
flavors.
learn how to make cocktails is they give you a lemon, they give you this gum that I told you, the sugar with water, they give you a little soda, and they make you make a lemonade.
Really?
Yeah,
so they make you make a perfect lemonade.
Exactly, that's the first lesson. So you learn to balance the acidity of the lemon, and the sweetness of the gum. So until it's completely well balanced.
Did you learn how to do this kind of thing, make cocktails, when you were in university studying enology, or did you learn it just on the job?
I'm learning. I learn it from the bartenders that I visit, and I talk.
You probably have a lot of friends who are bartenders.
Oh yeah. Bartenders are artists. What I'm doing here is just destroying the art of bartending. Yes, because they are really artists. They are wonderful people, and they really, the creations they do and all these kind of things is wonderful. Very, very, very nice. So what we're going to do now, it's a kind of surprising, because we're going to use a little Sauvignon Blanc
in a
cocktail with whiskey. Why? Because we think that this whiskey has this kind of temperament that it regards a little bit to Sauvignon Blanc. So we're going to increase the properties of this whiskey.
Okay.
So we're going to use 3 parts. Remember, 1 part of Arabic, 1 part of vodka,
and then
3/4
of a part.
Sauvignon Blanc.
I remember this now. You made this drink at the tasting I went to.
Yeah. And to finish, we're going to use this biological apple juice.
Organic.
Organic, yes. So we use it because, again, the quality of the ingredients is perfect, especially in apple juice, because when you do it yourself at home, it oxidates very, very fast, and it loses the character. So in this case, it's better to buy a good one.
Like an organic or a biologically cultivated product.
So that's it. Very easy. Now, plenty of ice. Remember, in English, there's no such a thing as too much ice.
They say that?
Yeah, they say that. Because you need a lot of ice. If you put, even when you drink whiskey on the rocks or something, you need a lot of ice, because otherwise you're watering your whiskey, you're watering your cognac, you're watering everything you mix with so little ice. Okay, let's go.
Sound effects, please.
The first cocktail I make while I'm sitting, very difficult. Can you see my face like that going?
Xavi said that before we came on the air. He goes, I've never shaken a cocktail while sitting down. But
usually you do the shaking until you get this
frost.
Yeah.
Okay.
You feel this kind of little coating. That means that the cocktail is getting at the right temperature, which is very important.
Okay. You want another glass?
Yeah.
We're
going to have another glass of those.
I hate to pour it out of here. We'll have one of the techs bring us a glass. It wouldn't be proper to drink it out of the shaker.
Not very nice. Not very nice indeed.
Now, while we're waiting for our glass, you brought a beautiful piece of fruit here for decoration.
Yeah,
and
we're
I
going
think
to
it's called
decorate
pitahaya. And we don't know, but we think the pitahaya is from Vietnam. And it's a beautiful, beautiful fruit. It looks like a cross between a kiwi and something
a little bit
else.
of grapes. Some of your team, because we've been trying it, they say that it a little bit also like blueberries.
Tastes like blueberries.
A little bit. So it has a lot of nice flavors, but all of them very, very light. Yeah. So what we're going to do is to decorate. You see that the contrast is going to be very nice. So what we're going to do is we're going to put the pitahaya here.
It's beautiful.
And it want to look very nice.
It's too beautiful to
drink. That is part
drink.
also of the luxury cocktails, to decorate it properly.
Now, I think you should taste something. I don't want to taste everything without. It wouldn't be proper to have my.
It's It's very bad
What
that I
do you-
say it, but it's wonderful.
What do you think, Maestro? I'll be the judge of that. Let's see here. And this is called?
This is called Are You Bobby Moore?
This is the Are You Bobby
Exactly.
Moore.
Are You
I have
Bobby
no
Moore?
idea where that name came from. Do you?
Yeah, it came from English slang.
It's
The
delicious.
rhyming, it is very nice.
This cocktail doesn't taste strong at all, even though I know there is vodka, whiskey, wine
and apple juice.
juice, but it doesn't have a strong taste. You could get very drunk on this.
Oh yeah, very dangerous. And you again watch at the balance between acidity and sweetness again. It is sweet, but it's not so sweet.
No.
It is dry, but it's not so dry.
And
it is well balanced.
It's well balanced because you can taste a little bit of apple, you can taste a little bit of the wine, just a little bit, but it doesn't have one flavor overpowering another one.
Overtaking the others.
No, it's very good job. Okay, and you're going to make one more?
Yeah, let's make
for
one
us?
more.
Let's make one. We have time.
Yeah, we have time. Perfect. Then let's make one more. We're mixing a little bit here, the ice and everything, because as you can see, we're not behind a proper bar. So we're doing our best with this. We're talking now about the mint, the mint leaves that we use a lot in cocktails because all these balsamic aromas, all these herbal aromas helps a lot. Mojito, for instance, is kind of.
What would a
icon
mojito be
for
without mint?
Exactly. It wouldn't exist. Huh? So there's two advices on the mint. When you use mint, you never use this part.
No. Is it bitter?
It is very bitter.
Yeah.
It gives you a lot of tannins, and then it's really very, not very nice
Yeah.
at all. So you only use the leaves, and when you bruise it, when you put it in the
Pinch it?
shaker, exactly, you pinch it. You only bruise it.
Okay.
You don't break them.
Okay.
You don't smash them.
Okay. You
It's
don't do the muddling where you.
Yeah, you do the
you
muddling,
but
but very, very lightly.
Okay, so treat your ingredients with respect.
That's very good. Almost caress them, in this case. So we're going to use almost all the time 12 leaves.
Okay. Is that the magic number?
The magic number for 12,
Not
10,
13,
it doesn't matter.
Not 11.
Not 12. We used 12, but it doesn't matter.
One thing that Xavi did when we were at the wine tasting is that he slapped against his hand, which really made it smell good. Right?
Exactly.
We need a little
Yeah, very good.
perfume.
If you smell a mint leaf, just like that, and then you hit it in your hand, you open the pores, and then it smells with more intensity.
Xavi, can you finish this drink in 2 minutes?
Yes, we can think it. Because what we're going to do is to get a little of lime, again, acidity.
We're putting Xavi under pressure, but I think he can do it. So lots of lime.
Yes, first, sorry, but we have to bruise it a little bit.
Bruise it a little bit. In English, we call that muddling.
Muddling, yeah.
You take the little wooden stick and
muddling, yeah.
And that's to release the flavors of the mint.
We have the flavors of the mint in the lime.
Okay. Have we put alcohol in here yet?
Yeah, no. What we're going to put is we're going to make kind of mojito, but we're going to make it with the most complex whiskey of the world, which is Glenmorangie.
Okay.
26.
The most complex. This is the most famous. This is the most complex.
The most complexity. Yeah, 26 different flavors. It's made with.
There's 26 different flavors in this bottle.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
You can feel 26 different flavors. It's made with the highest, the tallest still pots of Scotland.
If you know what to smell, though. I'm not sure I could smell 26.
Yeah, I'm sure you can. I'm sure you can.
I might get
we
2.
put ice again.
Ice. The
very, very simple,
ingredient.
as you can see, the magic ingredient. As you can see, very easy.
Don't forget your ice. And then you put in, just put some in.
Yeah, like that.
Okay.
Just, you have to have the scent.
Mint in here.
Lime, again, acidity.
Okay.
A little bit of acidity.
A little Glenmorangie.
Glenmorangie, 10-year-old.
10-year-old.
Wonderful whiskey, very complex with a lot of fruit. And because it has a lot of fruit, what we're doing is to add a little bit of puree as well.
Okay, a little fruit puree.
Yeah, mango peach.
Mango peach.
Because that elements, that aromas, that fruits, you have it in the whiskey as well, which is very, very complex. So we add a little bit.
Okay.
And we have the sweetness in this puree against the acidity of the lime.
The balance of the acidity
Again,
with the sweetness. And
always
now
balanced.
You're going to shake it up.
We're going to shake it up.
We're running out of time, but we're hurrying. Shake. All right. You're doing very well. I know. It's hard to do this under pressure. And I'm going to drink it out of a champagne glass. I love
Exactly.
this.
Yeah.
How posh.
We're going to drink it
All
out
right,
of a
put a little in
champagne
here
glass.
for yourself, and we're going to have a toast, and then we're going to sign off.
I don't know.
And I'd like to thank, when in Rome. So, Xavi Monclus, thank you very much for coming to my living room and having a cocktail party with me.
Thank
This
you.
is called
What's the name of your program?
My Living Room.
My Living Room.
It's a My Living Room
We're going to drink My Living Room now. Exactly.
Cheers, everyone. Thank you for visiting. Thank you for watching today. And thank you, Xavi Monclus, for visiting my living room and making cocktails. We'll be back in another episode very soon. Thank you for watching. Adios, amigos and amigas. Have a great afternoon. Bye-bye. Cheers.